Hey, how you doing? Okay, this one is about the X-Men, a favorite comic book of probably you and me. Oh my gosh, the X-Men, yo. So, when my son was about ready to be born and I was trying to figure out how I could be a good parent, I decided I would start collecting the X-Men. I thought that would be a really cool thing. It turned out my son didn't really like the X-Men as much as me. It turned out to be more of a thing that I did. But I ended up with kind of a decent collection before that happened, and I read to him a bunch of them. He didn't dislike it, but it turned into more of a thing that I did. So, like the X-Men, okay, seriously, so it starts out, the artwork it's in the 60s, the early 60s. The artwork, look at that. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know how to explain it. You know how there's some kinds of art you like? The artist's name was Jack Kirby. We already know Stan Lee was the writer, but just like the artwork. Look at that artwork. Gosh dang it. It's just the coolest artwork. And the stories are really good. These are like total from that era. There they are. That's a good picture right there. See? No, that's not. That's after a while. Though that's more original. It looked more like that. Like that. Okay, so the story starts out. The original X-Men was Marvel Girl, also called Jean Grey. So Professor X started a school for mutants, for gifted kids, and the first recruit he got for the school was Jean Grey. And then so the very first issue of X-Men, it starts out that way with Jean Grey already in the school, Professor X there, and then all the other original X-Men, which is the Beast, Iceman, Cyclops, and Angel. Okay, so the first group of issues, that was all the X-Men. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 X-Men and Professor X to start, and they all just kind of come into the room one more time and get to know each other, and then that's the first issue. Okay, so the first issue starts in 1963. Okay. So of course Stan Lee is the story writer and editor. Then Jack Kirby pencils it in and draws it. Those two are responsible for most of the Marvel universe that was happening with that artwork of the 60s, which, gosh dang it, dude. I'm not kidding around. It is so cool. So nowadays, this is what it looks like if you have the original issues. So it's the first 17 issues are with Stan Lee. The first 17 issues was the Jack Kirby Stan Lee team, and they basically set the whole foundation. That's why they own the story. And then every issue after issue 17 it's not written by Stan Lee anymore. Okay, so they own it, they started it, but it's just the beginning. So nowadays when you buy this one, like if you bought this one, issue 1, it would say the X-Men, and then up here it would say the early years. So if you're trying to just collect the comic books for the sake of the story and the artwork, they're awesome to get. If you can own all 17 issues, I owned like 15 of the 17. When my son wasn't interested, I sold him like a fool. Dang it. I probably shouldn't have done that. But they weren't the valuable ones. The ones worth money are the ones that don't say the early years. But if you're trying to collect the story, you want the ones that say early years. The first 17 issues, see? There's the 14th. It establishes like the Juggernaut, the Sentinels. I mean, it really establishes the story right at the beginning. You know, 66, 67. Okay, now, where are we? 19. So right here, by 19, it's no longer with Stan Lee. The cover art's still Jack Kirby, see? But the writer is, I guess, Werner Roth. Okay? So what ends up happening... Look at that artwork. Look at that gosh dang artwork. Oh my gosh. Seriously, right, eh? It's just like, I can't say enough how much I love that era of artwork. See? So issue 28, it was still Jack Kirby. Then by issue 49, 1968, the first cover by Jim Steranko starts, okay? Here's some really cool stuff. There, that's from the first issue. That's a classic moment in issue 1. So there you get to see that artwork. Look at that artwork. Isn't that fun? That's not is new. This is. See, can you tell the difference? That's after a while. It's no longer new. I mean, the old now. This is the old artwork. That's newer. That's older. That's older. So I like all X-Men. If it's X-Men, it's pretty good. But I really like the Jack Kirby days of X-Men. I think that's super cool. So some really cool things to know. Professor X. So we know that Professor X is in a wheelchair. We know that Jean Grey and Professor X, they have like these psychic abilities. You know, they can communicate with people's minds and stuff. Why was Professor X in a wheelchair? Well, there's a picture of it. Because there was this bad guy named Lucifer. And he went inside the earth, like deep inside the earth, to fight him. And Lucifer had a bunch of rocks tumble on top of him, and it paralyzed him. And that's why he's in, for the whole rest of the series, he's in a wheelchair. So at the very, very first, he wasn't... I mean, for issue 1, he was in a wheelchair. Okay? But at one point, it recaps, you know, it tells you why he's in... Why, you know, what happened, why he's in a wheelchair. So, like, he's always in a wheelchair through the whole thing. But it does tell you the story about him, that battle between him and Lucifer. Cyclops is an original. Iceman. Iceman, he's like the young one. He's the youngest one of the group and gets kind of teased about it. My favorite one is Angel. If you know me, I really like angels. You've already seen my tattoo with the angel on my arm anyway. I can't get this shirt off in time. So Angel's really changed a lot. The original Angel is like that. You already saw a picture earlier. That's the original one. Then it like goes like to there. You know, like things happen to him. That's from issue 1. Where he's like, he hides his wings like that. Then he becomes that. Like nowadays he's called Archangel. And he looks like that. Originally he was just called Angel. See? It's cool. That's in X Factor, a different branch. The Beast. The Beast originally looked like that. And then the reason he turns blue, he doesn't just all of a sudden be blue. Oh, it's right there. See, he mixes some chemicals or something. See that? And he changes, and then that's when he looked more human at first, but not completely human. So he had like big feet, he could climb, he was roughly the same, but then when he had this accident mixing this chemical, that's when his skin became blue and he became like what we know him like. So he didn't start out that way. See that? So there's some different ways that he looked. Phoenix, I had some classic moments with Phoenix. Like I had the issue that there's the Xavier estate. See, a lot of it's underground. Just fun stuff. Okay, so what my goal is with this video, it's like if you go to the comic book store right now and you say, I want to start collecting X-Men, you're not going to know where to begin. At this point, there's so many different branches of X-Men and so many different titles and so many different things. You're going to be like, oh, what like what, like how do I even do this? Like what's the, you know, so now you know. The first one, because there's more than one issue 1. There's, you know, when it starts a new name, it starts over again with issue 1. So you're like, oh, which? So you look for the one that say the early years on it, and the first 17 are with Stan Lee. So that's what starts the whole thing. If you can get those, that's really cool. Okay, but okay, so now what ends up happening is when you get to the, see, so 1970, see, there it is. Issue 66. So in 1970, issue 66, they did this survey, and they realized the X-Men wasn't selling very good. And so they said, wow, just like nobody's even reading this. And so they stopped printing it. They ended the story, but they kept the characters alive. They want, you know, they liked the new characters, so they kept them alive. They would be guest appearances in other comic books for a while. And they didn't do any new X-Men for a while. And see, like here's the Beast. You know, they either did their own comic books or they were guests in other comic books. And then the Incredible Hulk, issue 180, introduces a new character called Wolverine. So Wolverine's first appearance wasn't even in the X-Men. Okay? And so they're like, oh, then they do the survey, and the survey says that that they actually were wrong. Like it just for a little while it wasn't selling good, but right when they stopped printing them, it just barely was starting to get good. All of a sudden they were getting a bunch of readers. So they're like, oh crap, we weren't doing as bad as we thought. And so they gathered together with Tom Sutton. No. Okay, the writer was Len Wein, and the artist was Herb Trimp. Okay, and some of the designs by John Romita Sr. Okay, so they no, it was, I'm sorry, it was Wein and Dave Cockrum. Okay, so then what they did was they decided to start over again, and they started with the giant size X-Men. Okay, so they said, you know what? Have you ever noticed that all of the X-Men are Americans? So they said, when let's restart the X-Men, but let's just like start off with a bang, and we'll introduce a bunch of new X-Men, and they'll all be from different countries. So they won't be all Americans. So it'll you know, they said, let's make it this like, let's make it this international thing. So I happen to have that, the giant size X-Men. So there it is, giant size X-Men. So see, so there's like the first page. They're going to introduce a bunch of new characters. See, so they start out with, so it's the coolest issue to have, because in one issue you get the story of how a whole bunch of the classic X-Men come into the picture. Here's the story of Nightcrawler from Germany coming in. See? Goes through that, then he meets Professor X and becomes an X-Men. Then Wolverine, who, like I said, was already existed in Incredible Hulk, but then he comes from Canada and meets Professor X and becomes an X-Men. See? Then Storm, who comes originally from Kenya, but way later they change it to Morocco. Just a little interesting fact. So yeah, originally, yeah, she is from Kenya, and they switched to Morocco way later. When I collected X-Men, that's what I mostly had was Storm, issues about Storm. So like I know a whole bunch about Storm. She's really fun for me. Sunfire. Where does Sunfire come from? He comes from Siberia. Colossal gosh dang it, Colossus, I mean, sorry. Who, of course, comes from Russia. And he comes into it. Thunderbird, who's an Apache from America. And he becomes an X-Men. See, and then they all meet together. Here they are, like if you read this, it's kind of funny. They're trying on their suits for the first time. In all my life, like right there. In all my life, such clothing as this I have never seen. You know, so like it's kind of funny, you know, because like the first time they meet, they're also trying on their new costumes for the first time, and they're like kind of getting used to it, you know. They're like, wow, our new costumes. But see, here's like Cyclops, which, as you know, is one of the original X-Men. You know, and he's kind of like the boss. So anyway, so then, see, then it has like the story. It's really good. If you can get your hands on Giant Size X-Men, it's a really fun one to get, because that's when it really gets rocking. Once you've got these international characters, it's been started, it's been established with the first 17 issues, and it's under the title X-Men. Okay? And then Giant Size X-Men starts, see, 1. It starts over again. And from that point on, see, that was Giant Size X-Men was 1975, issue number 1. They start over again, issue number 1. Okay, and then, why did it just go out of focus? That's not very much fun, is it? Hello? Thank you. Okay, so 1975. Wow. Really not fun. Camera. Then in 1979, I mean, when was it? It was, let me check. Okay, so Giant Size X-Men was 1975. Here's another one, 1975, number 94. So really, it ended with issue 66. Okay, with that one. In 1970, issue 66. Then they picked it up again with the Uncanny X-Men in 75. So between 70 and 75, they were just like floating around here and there. And that's issue 1. And then see, 1975, that same year, it goes to issue number 94. So like they must have started with a different number. You know, like they must have started with issue 66 and just did that one as number 1. I don't know why they did that. Here, it says right here, let me read this. Okay, yeah. So it says, who made their debut in 1975 in Giant Size X-Men issue 1, intended as the first of a series of double-sized comics. That, however, was not to be. With the very next story, X-Men returned to the standard format, picking up the original series numbering with issue 92. So they did Giant Size X-Men, and they started, it was issue 1, and they thought they were going to start with a new title, but it didn't turn out that way. They ended up just picking up where they left off and just went back to just the title X-Men with issue 92. Okay, so this is 94. This explains why this is 94. That's just 2 issues later. 76, we're at 9. It's still called X-Men. 98. 78. X-Men. Issue 114. See, so if you collect these, you could go all the way from the early years right now in order. Issue 1, issue 2. But by 1979, they switched the title to the Uncanny X-Men. See, here's another one in 1979. Issue 127. They changed it to the Uncanny X-Men. And they started with Chris Claremont. So Chris Claremont would be the writer of the X-Men for 17 years. See, it says, with the Marvel writer Chris Claremont. Thus began Claremont's 17-year run as writer of the X-Men, a record yet to be matched. The Claremont-Cockrum team quickly drew notice from discerning comic book readers at the time. So it really took off like never before. So this one, they have an issue called Episode 1. I don't know why it doesn't show it. But it's the most, it's sold the most out of any comic book. They do start back over again with the title Uncanny X-Men and start back at number 1. And on that one, it's the best sold comic book ever. I can't find it anywhere. I just know because I used to own it. It's called, they called it issue 1. So like when I think it restarts with the title Uncanny X-Men, and it's still with Chris Claremont, and it does really good. So basically, if you want to start collecting X-Men, hopefully you can get the first 17, the early years, and then just keep following it along to issue 66, and then if you're real good, you'll collect the things that happen between 66 or 1970 and 1975. But if you can get the giant size X-Men, and don't be confused that it's issue 1, and then it picks up again with issue 92. Because they did a bunch of reprints and it ended at 91. So then 92, 93, 94, all the X-Men. It eventually switches the title to the Uncanny X-Men and really does really good. So the original title today, like if you go to the comic book store today and you find one that's called the Uncanny X-Men, that's the original line. But it's branched off into a bunch of different directions. So I'll just kind of go through this. We can see there's Colossus. This book is really cool. It's just kind of like an encyclopedia for Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, the Banshee. I had the original issue where the Banshee comes in. He's a favorite of mine too. Sunfire. We already know about Thunderbird. Moira McTaggart. Here's the X-Men aircraft. The Imperial Guard. See, Alpha Flight. It just goes off into a bunch of different directions. These are some villains. Just fantastic artwork, isn't it? See, that goes on. Look at this. Excalibur, Alpha Flight, Wolverine, the New Mutants, just X Factor. Did I already say that? So like if you go there today and look at the X-Men thing, you'll see there's just, that's why I'm doing this, because it can be confusing. It's like the Hellfire Club. It's like, oh my gosh, what? Like, where do I start? Because just going with one that says issue number 1 doesn't, it isn't how you do it. You have to know which number 1 to get. Okay? So now you know. Shadowcat. And it branches off. You can get more and more into it and collect more and more things and figure out what you really like the best. Mystique, who we know is actually Nightcrawler's mom. Rogue, everybody's favorite. Phoenix, the New Mutants, Morlocks, just some cool stuff, isn't it? Psylocke, yeah, I had some Psylocke. See, I shouldn't have done it. It's because I needed to pay rent, so I was just like, oh man, my son it didn't go. He liked some of my ideas, but some he didn't like. Sabretooth. He didn't care for the X-Men, so I kept this book. I kept the giant-sized X-Men. And since then, I've kind of experimented a little bit, you know, trying to find something else that I might like. The Hulk are really cool. The Catwoman's is one of the ones I think I might continue. I've got a bunch of Wildstorm Rising. I kind of inherited those. My son did like these, so I actually have a bunch of Bionicle ones. His thing was the Legos when he was younger. So, see, so I have very little. It's kind of tragic. But I kept, my two favorite things was this book and especially this one. It's actually 2 issues. See, there it is right there. I just happened to turn right to it. Where was that? This is actually 2 issues. If you can get this, it's just the really cool artwork, and it starts a whole new era. Brings it all into focus right there, see? Issue 96. Isn't that what I said? It's like issue, this is actually, I think this is three of them. It does the issue 1 giant size, then it does like the next few after that, continuing with the new number, you know. Oh no, it's this one, there it is. Yeah, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, all in one big book. And it just kind of, it's during that classic era when all of these characters get added into the picture. So there you go. So now you can, that should be a really good lead. You can take it from there. Go to the comic book store, find their X-Men collection, and just start looking through the stuff and making sense of it. And when you see something that's relevant to something I just described, get it and start your collection. I don't know if you can kind of order things or what, but you know, see how the artwork just really progresses. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff on Archangel. You know, the artwork just really goes a bunch of different directions. Rogue, X-Force, X-Man. X-Man is Professor X's son. I had some of those. Mutant X. Gambit, who's like one of the cooler ones, I think. Yeah, there he is. Gambit's the guy. We like Gambit. Weapon X. You know about that with Wolverine from the movies. X-Force. X-Factor. Anyway, you are set up. You guys are good to go. Enjoy collecting X-Men. It's fun stuff.